More portal updates, a navigable schedule, and possibly the death of the season ticket. Let's talk about it all right now on Locked On Mizzou.
You are Locked On Mizzou, your daily podcast on the Missouri Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, all you true sons and daughters, I'm John Miller, your Mizzou mafioso and the central scrutinizer of Missouri Tigers football and basketball. And today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. And I got to say, I don't have anything to add to Missouri's loss to Kentucky yesterday in the Sweet 16. But I will say volleyball is fun to watch. I'm not an analyst of it whatsoever, but a really great sport. No question about that. But the Tigers, a great season, just cut short by, well, a team that I thought was just a little bit better watching it in the Kentucky Wildcats. So there is your volleyball and your volleyball analysis for the day. But of course, I want to start with football because there's just so much happening behind the scenes right now. In terms of Tiger football, it's almost hard to keep up with all of it. But the biggest news is that Miller Moss, the USC quarterback, wrapped up his visit with Missouri, and no commitment is forthcoming. He is still taking his visit to Louisville. Nothing to necessarily panic about there whatsoever, just in a perfect world. Well, of course, Moss would have been so wowed and amazed by everything in Columbia that he just would have had to fall down on his knees and take the offer that Eli Drinkwitz was presenting him from up upon high. But instead, he goes on to Louisville, and there is some real danger there that he could go to the Cardinals, without a doubt. Devin, one of my viewers, points out that he thinks that actually Moss is most likely to go to Louisville. He says Brom, being the Louisville's coach, sends guys to the NFL. Perfect fit for him. Louisville has the capability at receiver who can make the plays in the quick, accurate passing game. Well, first of all, quick, accurate passing game. That sounds a bit like the Kirby Moore and Eli Drinkwitz preferred offense, so maybe Miller Moss knows what he's doing. He thinks he's a fit at both of these places. So if you're Missouri, if you're a Missouri fan, I know there's some division on Miller Moss. I feel like probably 75% of it, though, is positive. I think you just have to trust your staff at this point and trust the evaluations here, because let's not forget, Eli Drinkwitz was all over Jaden Daniels before his huge breakout as your Heisman Trophy winner, helped Brady Cook along to have a nice career. So I think while certainly Eli Drinkwitz quarterback recruiting and development hasn't been perfect by any means, I think maybe he's taken a little bit too much criticism. Obviously, Tyler Macon didn't work out. I think we can all agree with that, but everybody's going to miss at the quarterback position on occasion. Can we really blame Eli Drinkwitz, for example, for Sam Horn, for taking him and letting him play baseball? I think the risk was worth the reward. Unfortunately, sometimes you just roll snake eyes in life, and I think that's more or less what's happened here. But the good news for Horn in Missouri, there's still time for him to come through, to make that proposition actually pay off, if you will. Now, when it comes back to the portal, one guy that seems to be trending really hard toward Missouri's way, just based on a lot of different indications, including various people at a couple people at 24/7, Sean Williams, and of course, our man Gabe DeArmond over at Power Mizzou are both predicting that Kevin Coleman is going to be a Missouri Tiger. Now, Kevin is a well-traveled player. Was it Jackson State with Deion Sanders at one point? Was with Louisville. Hey, speaking of the Cardinals, he was with Louisville recently as well, a guy from the St. Louis area. I had always heard rumors that he and Luther Burden, for whatever reason, didn't necessarily get along in high school, but both guys were obviously recruited hard by Missouri. Coleman goes elsewhere. Burden has the amazing career at Missouri that he had. I do think it's kind of interesting, though, that as Luther Burden goes out, Kevin Coleman might be coming in. So we'll just have to wait until anything's official here. That's probably the biggest news we're waiting for right now is Kevin Coleman. Will he officially announce his commitment to Missouri or not? And also Miller Moss, not only is he going to announce a commitment to either Missouri or Louisville, or perhaps a C option in the multiple choice exam as well, he could also say, maybe I'll look around and see what else is available, schedule some other visits. At that point, as others have pointed out, well, then as a Missouri fan, you got to start thinking Fernando Mendoza, formerly of the Cal Bears, is maybe your biggest option. Malik Murphy of Duke, formerly of Texas as well. He may be one of your biggest options as well. But the point is, Missouri, the guys that they seem to be in on, well, a lot of them are very promising. So if Moss doesn't commit to Missouri, I don't think that's any reason to panic at this point. And speaking of things that I personally am not panicking about, well, Williams Nwaneri, as you know by now, surely has entered the transfer portal and already found his landing destination. If you listen to the SEC squad yesterday, well, the news had already actually broken that Williams Nwaneri is going to be a Nebraska Cornhusker. And actually, Jay Smith from Locked On Sooners and I both agreed on that on that squad program. The Nebraska was Nwaneri's likely landing spot. Now, I will point out that show is recorded 2 days in advance there. So you know what? If we did it live, it would have seemed even more prescient. That's for darn sure. But Nwaneri, following his former Lee Summit North high school coach to Nebraska, where that man is now on staff. So not exactly a huge shock here, especially after it was revealed that Nwaneri, upon entering the portal in his paperwork, had a do not contact tag, which basically, long story short, means that he knew where he was going the moment he entered the portal. The only thing that I'm really pointing out here, I personally didn't know that a do not contact tag was part of the transfer portal process. That's just news to me, so I thought I'd share it with you as well. So if you're an everyday listener of this podcast, you'll certainly know that one drum I've been beating a lot is that this quarterback transfer portal market is going to move quickly. And to that point, one of my colleagues, Parker Ainsworth over at Locked On Cougs, well, he broke the news that Connor Wigman is transferring from Texas A&M to the Houston Cougars, a name that, well, some Missouri fans were interested in for sure based on all of my comments and feedback. So to my point, again, this market is going to move quickly. Also, Nicholas Castellanos, another guy the Missouri fans are quite familiar with, of course, the former Boston College quarterback that Missouri faced this past season. Well, he's going to be a Florida State Seminole, ironically enough, after Boston College pulled the upset in week 1 over the Seminoles in Tallahassee this past season. So to this point, what does this have to do with Missouri? Well, obviously, I think players like Miller Moss, like Malik Murphy, and of course, the Fernando kid whose name escapes me off the top of my head for Cal, Mendoza. There we go. Fernando Mendoza from the Cal Bears. All three of those young men are going to likely be off the market soon, one way or the other. So bottom line is, stay tuned to Locked On Mizzou, because I'm probably going to be giving you some bonus content this weekend if I had to be a betting man here. And in just a little bit, I want to talk more about the portal, a couple of offensive line notes that I think are significant for Missouri fans, but also the 2025 Mizzou football schedule is out. No shocks, of course, by the teams that Missouri is playing, but the order, the amount of home games in a row are, well, frankly, unprecedented. It's definitely an unusual schedule. But once again, a favorable schedule, and I'd say even more favorable than the 2024 schedule that was the big talk all off season. So let's get to all of that. But first, I want to tell you that Gametime is the absolute best place to get tickets to all types of live events, especially live basketball this time of year, whether it is Mizzou football, Mizzou basketball, of course, the NBA. I love NBA basketball live as much as I love Missouri basketball live as well. The NBA is a nice, refreshing change of pace in basketball. Go early, by the way. The guys hardly even miss a shot in warm-ups, even the 7-footers. It's absolutely unbelievable. But regardless, maybe you're into comedy, theater. Again, it's Gametime. Go check out Gametime Picks. Their curation makes it even easier to find the absolute best tickets without wasting all your time. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime Picks. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. So with Missouri already losing Cameron Johnson and Marcus Bryant to graduation eligibility running out, obviously, with Armand Mimbu off to the NFL, that's 3 starters Missouri is going to have to replace. Obviously, I'm hoping Logan Reichert, for example, younger players who have been on the roster for a little bit, can bubble up and take one of those starting spots. But if you're Missouri, we're going to get as many big bodies as we possibly can. That's certainly the goal for any team in the SEC, without a doubt, especially in the portal era. So how about former Texas A&M offensive lineman Cam Dewberry? According to his X feed, he's visiting Missouri along with Houston, Kansas State, Penn State, and North Carolina State as well. So that's certainly a name to watch. Miles McVay, a former East St. Louis high school player Missouri was big on in recruiting. He ends up committing to Alabama, entering the portal. Well, as of yet, I don't know how much mutual interest there is this time around with McVay and Missouri, as he's only visiting reportedly Illinois and Georgia Tech at the moment. Of course, things can always change. The transfer portal is nothing if not fluid. But one thing that wasn't particularly fluid is the change from the 2024 to 2025 Missouri SEC football schedule. Hey, if you liked last year's SEC football schedule for the Tigers, we're going to love this one because it's the exact same thing, just flip the home with the away. And just like 2024, 2025 is a favorable schedule for Missouri if your goal is to compile wins. And as we talked a lot about on the squad show yesterday, obviously compiling wins should be everyone's goal probably going forward, based on at least how this past season's college football playoff committee judged each of these teams. Indiana, of course, probably being the primary example, but you can make an argument on various other teams as well. But to me, the most important thing here, you look at this schedule. If you're watching on YouTube, I've got it pulled up for you here, but you can obviously, if you're listening, you can follow along online as well. But to me, the biggest takeaway here is that all 4 away games for Missouri are imminently winnable. Auburn, Vanderbilt, Oklahoma, and Arkansas. Listen, Missouri could lose each and every one of those games as well. So don't take it as, oh, I'm just chalking these babies up. But compared to last season, traveling to College Station, traveling to Columbia, South Carolina, of course, Tuscaloosa, Alabama as well, well, that's a lot easier road, at least on paper. It just is. Of course, in the portal era, your rosters are so transient at this point. Everything from year to year can change so much. But as we sit here today, you've got to say this is a more favorable schedule than even last season. I really believe that. And also, speaking of last season, if you like the start of the season last year, once again, you're going to love this season because 4 straight home games to start 2024. Well, how about a half dozen to start 2025? Central Arkansas, Kansas, Louisiana, South Carolina, UMass, and then mercifully a bye week before finally taking on the Alabama Crimson Tide. So not only is that a well-timed bye week, especially for Missouri tailgaters and their livers, but my goodness, of course, right before the Alabama game, you take them on at home without ever having to not only leave the state, you never have to leave your campus for 6 straight weeks to start the season. That is beyond unprecedented. It's really bizarre, honestly. I mean, I was a little bit worn out, honestly, as much as I love going to Mizzou football games. Well, as somebody who has a couple kids and a wife and a life and commercial buildings and whatever the heck else that we adults all have going on with our lives in our 40s. Yes, this is 40, ladies and gentlemen. 4 straight home games is tough. It'd be nice to stretch it out a little bit. So 5 straight, a bye week, and then yet another home game. Boy, Missouri fans are going to be a little bit worn out, and my wife will probably be a little bit worn out with me as well. But regardless of my personal problems here, I'm just kidding, folks. But seriously, this is a favorable schedule for Missouri, just as it was this past season. I'd argue even more favorable than last year, but it does sort of raise the same question as last season, which is, will 10-2 do it? Will 10-2 get Missouri in the 12-team playoff? Well, just like last offseason, this kind of pre-offseason here, if you will, we're in bowl season, I'm going to say likely yes, that 10-2 will get Missouri in the playoff once again. But what did we learn this season? Clearly, blowouts matter because Missouri got blown out on the road twice by Texas A&M, by Alabama. Hey, you take one drive at the end there, maybe the Missouri defense gets a stop. Does Missouri make the playoff in that scenario at 10-2? I don't think anyone can definitively say what happens either way, to be honest with you. I think you're right on the line there. If I had to guess, I would say, well, gosh, I guess I was wrong. 10-2 wouldn't have quite gotten Missouri in, at least under this specific scenario. But again, I'm going to stick with it, just like I did last season. 10-2 with this schedule, even if it is favorable, I think it gets Missouri in the playoff. And also here on Locked On Mizzou, could Kirby Moore be on the move? Could the Missouri season ticket holder, at least the regular season ticket holder, right? The non-premium season ticket holder, is that market being totally squeezed out right now? Let's talk about that in just a little bit. But first, how about a FanDuel, where you got to get ready to tackle the NFL action with America's #1 sports book? Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. When you get a hunch during a game, you can check out all the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That is FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. And college football reporter Dennis Dodd is saying that Kirby Moore is a possibility to be the next head coach of the New Mexico Lobos. And that just made me chuckle a little bit and think of the fickle nature of being a football coach because, well, last year, most Missouri fans thought Kirby was basically a golden god after that great 2023 season for Missouri. Now, after this season, I doubt a lot of Tiger fans would exactly be panicking for the most part if he left. The offense definitely underachieved this year, without a doubt. I mean, how much of that you actually attribute to Moore is, of course, up to you, but it'd be hard to make the argument that none of it was his fault whatsoever. But you know what? I want to talk about the discussion. A lot of Missouri fans right now are understandably upset because they're experiencing some sticker shock right now, especially Missouri season ticket holders in football and basketball. Well, Laird Veach, the Missouri athletic director, had tried to make it known as much as possible in interviews with various different Missouri outlets, this, that, and the other, putting out emails, doing a Zoom call yesterday, all that type of deal. But, you know, everybody else has got lives. Not everybody is obsessed with Missouri sports as you and I are necessarily. And I've just noticed a lot of people are not happy with the athletic department right now, and understandably so. Like, for example, I have one listener who said, man, $2,100 for my tickets last year. Now $3,700 is going to be the price for this coming season for the exact same tickets. This is getting close to what I'm paying for Kansas City Chiefs type of tickets. And I'm in an email thread with some of the most diehard Missouri fans you can possibly imagine, and a lot of them, a whole bunch, I would almost even say a majority of those people who are season ticket holders are saying, you know what, I think I'm going to opt out. This is just getting too expensive. So it just seems like your sort of non-premium season ticket holder is slowly but surely getting priced out of the market here. Well, I should say, actually, let me correct myself. That part of the market has been slowly but surely being priced out of the market for many, many years. Now, this is a sudden change. This is a very, very sudden change. And to be fair to the University of Missouri, though, to be fair to Laird Veach and everybody who has made this decision, if you look at Georgia, for example, hey, Missouri, would you like to be as good as Georgia? Well, apparently that doesn't come without a cost, because I'm looking at, for example, you look at Georgia's season ticket holding options. Well, Missouri this is fuzzy math here. I'll give you this, but I'm looking at the seats where my family and I sit. If I tried to sit there for a Georgia game for a season, it'd be about double the cost. So that's where we are. Again, that's the equivalent of tickets at Missouri, as far as I can tell. Now, the thing here is, I totally understand both sides of this argument. I really do. I understand where Laird Veach is coming from. If we want to win, well, we got to do it somehow. Because here's the thing, and here's something I think I got to correct myself on, maybe just correct my thinking a little bit, which is, I've been saying, hey, I liked Desiree Reed-Francois' approach of, let's try to get people in the stadium. We're getting millions and millions and millions of dollars. If you compare the amount of money Missouri, for example, is getting in television revenue versus the live gate, your live attendees, there's no comparison. It's all about television these days. But if you go one step further than that, you realize, oh, wait, but you're in the SEC, and you have 15 other teams that are making the exact same television revenue as you are. So how do you compete then? What is Missouri's edge? That's really the question. And I will confess to not knowing all the in and outs of all of this, but it does appear to me that I was looking at this maybe a little bit the wrong way. And maybe Desiree Reed-Francois and her administration could be maybe criticized a little bit of kicking this can down the road by not slowly raising prices maybe during her administration a little bit. Well, now you're getting a massive sticker shock during the Veach administration. I definitely understand that perspective as well. So here's the bottom line. All I know is my family and I are going to be keeping our tickets. I'm quite certain of that. I haven't had this discussion with old mom and dad yet, but considering dad's obsession with Missouri football and basketball that led to my obsession with Missouri and basketball and football, I'd say that's a pretty safe bet. But at the same time, I do get it's not even necessarily concern. It's just it's more a changing of the guard here with the season tickets, because in that email thread, I think it's important to point out that while a lot of these men were talking about, oh, these season tickets, I don't know about that, they're still saying, oh, I'll still attend games. I'm just not going to necessarily attend all of the games. So this isn't necessarily a bad thing. As long as you can still buy tickets on game time and whatever else is going on, see, obviously single tickets from the athletic department itself directly. Well, as long as people are still filling up the stands, maybe this isn't the worst thing in the world. If people go to 3 games in the year instead of 6 or 7, okay. If Missouri's good, that's probably a trade-off I will take. But I understand why people get upset about it, and I certainly understand why people make the decision to say, hey, this is getting a little out of hand money-wise. I'm going to spend it on something else and maybe watch the games, or at least maybe half the games on television instead. Can't blame anybody for that decision whatsoever. But I'm really curious to hear what all of you think on this topic. Hit me up everywhere on social media at Locked On Mizzou, or hit me an email, lockedonmizzou@gmail.com. So until next time, I am John Miller, and this has been Locked On Mizzou.